My friend, it is good to see you.
And you as well. You honor me.
The honor is mine.
Easy now, lift together.
It's heavy, but we're good.
I can help more.
Almost there, keep going.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
We gather in thanks.
For this home and family.
Amen. Brothers, we must address this matter together. Indeed, unity is our strength. Let us proceed with caution. Here are the papers for the school.
Oh, thank you. This is wonderful.
Yes, this will help the children.
You're welcome.
The day the secret slipped out, the sun was still warm over the Red Earth village, and everything looked as normal as it always had. Children chased each other between mud houses, women bargained loudly in the market, and smoke from cooking fires curled lazily into the sky. But inside one small family compound, a storm was quietly forming. One that would soon shake the life of a young girl who never imagined her world could change so fast. This is a story about family, fear, tradition, and choices that can never be taken back. Amina was known in her village as the quiet, respectful daughter who always kept her eyes low when elders spoke. At just 17, she carried the hopes of her parents, who believed education would open doors they never had the chance to walk through. Her father often told neighbors how proud he was that Amina wanted to become a nurse one day. Her mother would smile as she watched her daughter help younger children with their homework under the mango tree every evening. To everyone watching from the outside, Amina's life seemed carefully planned and protected. But secrets have a way of growing heavy, especially when carried alone. For weeks, Amina had been waking up before sunrise, sitting behind her house, staring at the fields while holding her stomach with trembling hands. She tried to convince herself that maybe she was mistaken, that maybe the sickness and exhaustion would pass. Yet deep inside, she already knew the truth. She was too afraid to speak aloud. In a village where reputation meant everything, one mistake could echo through generations. The truth finally surfaced on a quiet afternoon when Amina fainted while helping her mother prepare food for a family gathering. The clay pot shattered as it hit the ground, and relatives rushed to help her. Concern quickly turned into whispers when her aunt suggested they take her to the local clinic. Hours later, inside a small room that smelled of medicine and dust, the nurse delivered news that silenced everyone. Amina was pregnant. The journey home was painfully quiet. Her mother sat beside her without saying a word, her face stiff and unreadable. Her father walked several steps ahead, his shoulders tense as though he carried an invisible weight. The familiar path back to their compound suddenly felt long and unfamiliar. Amina's heart pounded louder with every step, knowing that the hardest part was still waiting for her. When they finally reached home, her father called for a family meeting. The air inside the house felt heavy, and even the walls seemed to listen. Her mother avoided her eyes while her older relatives slowly gathered, their expressions filled with shock, disappointment, and questions that no one asked out loud. Amina sat on the floor, her hands locked together, struggling to hold back tears as silence stretched longer than she could bear. Then her father stood up. His voice, usually calm and steady, carried a tone Amina had never heard before. He spoke about honor, about trust, about the shame that could follow their family. Every word felt sharper than the last. Amina tried to explain, tried to speak, but her voice refused to rise above a whisper. Her mother finally looked at her, and the expression in her eyes made Amina's chest tighten with fear. What happened next was something Amina never expected, and it would change the course of her life forever. Her father's voice fell silent, but the weight of his words remained hanging in the air like thick smoke. Amina kept her eyes on the floor, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf as her heart raced. She could feel every stare in the room pressing against her, waiting for answers she wasn't sure she could give. Her mother slowly stood up and walked toward the doorway, pausing as if she wanted to say something, but instead, she stepped outside without a word. That silence frightened Amina more than shouting ever could. In their village, news traveled fast, often faster than truth itself. By the next morning, whispers had already begun spreading through the narrow pathways and open markets. Some neighbors spoke with concern, remembering Amina as the polite girl who always greeted elders with respect. Others shook their heads, blaming what they called the influence of modern life and education pulling young girls away from tradition. Amina could hear fragments of conversations whenever she stepped outside, and each whisper felt like another stone added to the weight she carried. Inside the house, the atmosphere had completely changed. Her father barely spoke to anyone, spending long hours sitting outside under the old neem tree, staring into the distance. The same man who once laughed loudly with neighbors now avoided visitors, answering greetings with only nods. Her mother moved through the house quietly, focusing on chores with unusual intensity, as if staying busy could help her avoid the reality settling around their family. Meals became silent gatherings where the clinking of spoons against bowls sounded louder than any conversation. Amina spent most of her time in her small room, replaying every moment that had led her here. The memory of how she met Musa kept returning to her mind. He was new to the village, working as an apprentice carpenter who had come from a nearby town. Musa had a calm voice and an easy smile that made people trust him quickly. He often repaired broken furniture for villagers and sometimes volunteered to fix desks at Amina's school. That was where their conversations first began, starting with simple greetings that slowly turned into longer talks about dreams, hopes, and life beyond the village. At first, Amina believed she had found someone who understood her dreams of becoming a nurse and helping people in her community. Musa would often tell her she was different, that her kindness made her special. Those words stayed with her, especially during days when school felt overwhelming or when she felt pressure to meet her parents' expectations. Over time, their friendship grew into something deeper, something she kept hidden, knowing her parents would never approve. But Musa had left the village weeks before the truth about her pregnancy surfaced. He told her he was traveling to the city for better work opportunities and promised he would return soon. Since then, his phone number had stopped going through, and no one seemed to know exactly where he had gone. Amina replayed his promises in her mind, wondering if he even knew about the situation she was now facing alone. Meanwhile, her extended family continued visiting their compound, offering advice that often sounded more like judgment. Some relatives suggested quick decisions that would protect the family's reputation, while others argued that patience was needed to understand the full story. Amina overheard late-night discussions between her parents and elders, their voices low but serious, mentioning words like responsibility, consequences, and family honor. One evening, Amina noticed her mother speaking quietly with her father near the cooking area. Their conversation stopped immediately when they saw her watching. Her mother forced a small smile and asked her to go rest, but Amina sensed something was being planned without her knowledge. That uneasy feeling stayed with her through the night, growing stronger with every passing hour. The next morning, her father called her name in a firm voice from outside the house. As Amina stepped into the sunlight, she noticed two unfamiliar elders sitting beside him, their faces serious and unreadable. Her mother stood behind them, her hands tightly folded together. Amina felt her chest tighten as her father motioned for her to sit down, and in that moment she realized that whatever decision they were about to discuss might shape her future in ways she could not yet imagine. Amina's stomach churned as she sat down on the low wooden stool in front of her father. The two elders beside him were respected voices in the village, known for their wisdom and fairness, or so people said. But their presence only made Amina's heart pound faster. She could feel the weight of their eyes on her, and every breath seemed heavier than the last. Her father cleared his throat, the sound echoing strangely in the small courtyard. "We have called this meeting to discuss your situation, Amina," he began, his voice calm but edged with tension. "This is not just about you. It affects the entire family, our name, and the future of this household." Amina nodded slightly, trying to keep her voice steady, but she could feel tears threatening to spill. She wanted to speak, to explain, but every word seemed stuck in her throat. Her mind drifted back to Musa, to the promises he had made, and to the emptiness she had felt when he left. She wondered if he would even care that she was facing this alone, that her family was now caught between fear, anger, and confusion. The thought made her chest ache, but she kept silent. One of the elders, a tall man with deep lines etched into his forehead, spoke next. "We understand that young love can be strong, but we must also consider responsibility. The child she carries is innocent, yet the path forward must be chosen wisely." His words, though careful, felt like a weight pressing down on Amina. She realized this meeting wasn't just about punishment, it was about decisions that could change her life forever. Her mother finally spoke, her voice softer but trembling. "Amina, we love you, but you must understand, what you have done has consequences. Our family depends on our respect in the village. The neighbors, our relatives, they will talk. We must act in a way that preserves honor and ensures you are safe." Amina looked up at her mother, searching for the warmth and comfort she had always known, but all she saw was worry and fear mirrored in her eyes. As the discussion continued, Amina learned of unspoken plans and options being weighed. Some relatives suggested she should stay within the village under strict supervision, while others hinted at sending her to live with an aunt in another town until the baby was born. Each suggestion made her pulse quicken, a mix of fear, anger, and helplessness flooding through her. Outside, the market had started to buzz with early morning activity. Villagers walked past the compound, oblivious to the storm brewing within. Amina imagined the rumors that were already starting to spread, the questions she would face when people learned of her pregnancy. She felt cornered, trapped in a web of expectations, tradition, and secrecy that seemed impossible to untangle. Then her father leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Amina, we must also consider Musa's role in this. Do you know where he is? Does he know what has happened?" Amina shook her head, the fear of disappointment making her feel smaller than ever. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to her, waiting for a confession she could not give. In that moment, Amina realized the conflict she faced was larger than just herself. It was about family, tradition, loyalty, and the unknown consequences of decisions yet to be made. The elders exchanged looks and her father's jaw tightened. Every fiber of her being told her that the coming days would test her in ways she had never imagined, and that whatever happened next could either destroy her or define her future. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves and carrying the distant sound of children playing, a cruel reminder of the innocence she felt slipping away. The next few days felt like Amina was living in a shadow. Every step she took in the house, every glance from her father, every sigh from her mother reminded her that her life was no longer her own. The elders stayed close, offering advice and opinions that often conflicted with one another, and each suggestion carried the weight of expectation. Amina began to notice subtle changes in the way people spoke to her, soft whispers behind hands, lingering looks of pity, and the careful way her neighbors avoided her gaze when she walked past. Even the children she had once helped now gave her hesitant nods, unsure how to act around someone whose life had suddenly become a topic of public discussion. Her father grew quieter by the day. He would sit on the wooden bench under the neem tree, staring out at the fields, sometimes muttering under his breath. Occasionally, he would glance at Amina with a mixture of frustration and concern, and she could feel the tension in the air thickening every time their eyes met. Her mother, meanwhile, became almost ghost-like, moving through the house as if she were walking on eggshells, her usual warmth replaced with careful neutrality. Late one night, Amina overheard a conversation between her parents that made her heart pound. They were speaking in hushed voices, voices heavy with worry. "If the village finds out before Musa returns," her mother whispered, "it could ruin everything for her, for all of us." Her father's reply was a low growl of frustration. "We need to decide before anyone else talks. Waiting could be worse." Amina pressed herself against the wall, her stomach twisting. Whatever decision they were planning, it was coming soon, and she had no control over it. Amina's thoughts constantly drifted to Musa. Where was he really? Had he forgotten her, or was he truly struggling to come back? She clutched her stomach and imagined him standing there beside her, promising that everything would be okay. But reality was cruel, and she knew she couldn't depend on him arriving in time. The uncertainty gnawed at her, making the fear inside her feel even heavier. The village itself seemed to grow tense as well. Rumors began spreading quietly, as if the air carried whispers from house to house. She could feel the pressure mounting from every direction, the weight of expectation, the judgment of neighbors, and the unspoken fear in her parents' eyes. Amina began to notice her father pacing more at night, and her mother praying quietly in the corner of their compound. Every movement, every whispered word, told her that the situation was reaching a breaking point. One evening her father called her outside. The sun had set, leaving only a soft orange glow over the horizon, and the shadows of the trees stretched long across the courtyard. The two elders were waiting, their faces serious and unreadable. Her mother stood silently behind them, hands tightly clasped. Amina's heart hammered in her chest. She had a sense, deep in her bones, that whatever conversation was about to happen could change her life forever. Her father's voice was steady but cold as he spoke. "Amina, we have considered all possibilities. It is time to decide what must be done, and you will have to accept it." The elders nodded solemnly, and her mother's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Amina's pulse raced, every instinct screaming at her that this was the moment everything she feared was about to come crashing down. She swallowed hard, trying to prepare herself for what was coming, but deep inside she knew that nothing could truly prepare her for the choice that lay ahead. The night air felt heavier than ever, carrying the tension of expectation, fear, and uncertainty. Every second stretched, every breath felt like a countdown, and Amina realized that whatever happened next could shape the rest of her life, and the life of the child she carried, in ways she could not yet imagine. The elders exchanged quiet glances, her mother's lips trembled and her father's jaw tightened. Amina's hands shook as she sat down on the low stool, knowing that in mere moments her world would pivot in a way that would leave nothing the same. Amina's legs felt weak, and she sank onto the low stool, clutching her stomach as if holding herself together could stop the world from spinning. The man who had brought the papers hesitated, then finally stepped closer. There's more, he said, his voice barely audible. Her father's frown deepened, and the elders leaned forward, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Her mother's hands trembled as she pressed them together, whispering a prayer under her breath. The young man pulled another envelope from his jacket, worn and creased from travel. These letters, he said, show that Musa, he has been involved with someone else in this village. Someone much closer than anyone realized. Amina froze. Her mind raced. Another secret? Another betrayal? Her chest tightened as a cold fear crept over her. Her father snatched the envelope and unfolded the papers. His eyes widened, then narrowed in disbelief. The elders murmured among themselves, exchanging glances so sharp they cut through the heavy air. Amina looked from her father to her mother, whose face had gone pale. What does this mean? Amina whispered, her voice breaking. It means, her father finally said, his voice low but trembling with anger, that Musa was not only hiding a family in the city, he has been meeting someone here in the village, someone who could bring shame not just to us but to everyone involved. Amina's mind spun. She tried to comprehend what he was saying. Could it be someone she knew? Someone close? The thought made her stomach twist in knots. Her mother took a step forward, her voice sharp despite the fear in her eyes. Amina, we have to protect you, but we also have to protect the family. This is bigger than anything we imagined. The village will not forgive lies, secrets, or scandal. Decisions have to be made now. Her words cut through the silence like a knife. Amina could feel the weight of generations pressing down on her. The young man finally spoke again, glancing nervously at the elders. I was asked to deliver this by someone who knows the full story. Musa, he has left messages warning that if Amina's pregnancy became known here, there would be consequences. He didn't want her to be exposed, but he also didn't want anyone to find out about the other relationship. Now it's out and things could spiral fast. Amina's hands shook. Consequences. Spiraling. The words echoed in her head as panic began to rise. Her father slammed the papers onto the ground. This cannot continue. The village will talk. The elders will act. We must decide who can stay, who must leave, and how we manage what everyone now knows. Amina, you are at the center of all this, and your choices, though limited, will determine what happens next. Amina's mind raced. Every path seemed impossible. Staying could ruin her reputation and that of her family. Leaving might feel like safety but also loneliness and shame. And what of Musa? Was he ever truly part of her life, or had she been living in a carefully constructed illusion? The shadows of the courtyard stretched long under the setting sun, and the wind carried whispers of uncertainty from the trees. Every heartbeat felt louder, every second stretched longer. Amina realized that the conflict was no longer just about secrecy or family honor. It was about survival, trust, and facing betrayal she had never imagined. And in that moment, she knew that the next move her family made could ignite events that none of them could control. A deep, heavy silence fell over the compound, broken only by the rustling of the papers at her feet. Amina's eyes darted between the faces around her, the parents, the elders, the stranger, and she understood that the choices coming next were far bigger than her fears. The storm that had been quietly brewing was now roaring, and there was no turning back. Amina felt like she was holding her breath as her father finally straightened, his face tight with determination. The elders sat quietly, waiting for the next words to fall, their eyes sharp and unyielding. Her mother stood behind her, hands folded but trembling slightly, as if bracing herself for what was about to come. For what felt like hours, no one spoke. Then her father took a deep breath and said, Amina, we cannot change the past. But we can decide how to face the truth, and protect you and this child. Her words caught in her throat as her mother continued, her voice steady but soft. We will keep you here with us. The village may talk, but your father and I will stand with you. This child is still part of our family and you are still our daughter. That will not change. A wave of relief surged through Amina, but it was fragile, like a bird resting on a branch in a storm. The elders nodded in approval, agreeing that compassion and understanding were needed alongside tradition. Her father looked down at the papers scattered at his feet, then back at her. As for Musa, he is no longer part of this story. His choices were his own, and he has shown he cannot be trusted. We will face the village together, and you will not be alone. Amina's chest tightened as tears fell freely, not only from fear but from a strange mixture of grief and relief. She had been preparing for anger, punishment, and shame, but instead she felt a tentative shield of protection from her parents. The young man who had delivered the letter stepped back, bowing slightly. "I only came to ensure she knew the truth," he said. "Everything else is in your hands now." With that, he quietly left, leaving a silence that felt heavy but also somehow clearing the tension that had been suffocating Amina for days. For the first time since the pregnancy was revealed, Amina felt a flicker of hope. Her parents had made their choice, not one dictated solely by fear or reputation but by love. She realized that the real battle had been about trust, family, and courage. And for now those battles had been won. But just as she began to breathe a little easier, her mother pulled her aside, lowering her voice. "There is one more thing you must know, Amina. The letters you received were not the whole truth. Musa, he is connected to someone much more powerful than we imagined. Someone who has been watching, and who may come looking for the child." Amina's stomach dropped again. The relief she had felt moments ago evaporated into fear. Her father looked at her mother, then at Amina, his eyes grim. "We may have protected you from the village, but the outside world, it is different. The decisions we make from now will matter more than ever." The elders, sensing the tension, exchanged concerned looks but said nothing, leaving the weight of the revelation hanging in the air. Amina pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to absorb the shock. Just when she had begun to feel some control, she realized that the story was far from over. Musa's betrayal, the hidden family, the village's gossip, they were only the beginning. Something bigger, darker, and far more dangerous was waiting, and she would have to face it with courage she wasn't sure she had. As the sun set behind the horizon, painting the courtyard in deep red and gold, Amina's eyes hardened with determination. She had survived the betrayal, faced her parents' fears, and protected her child. But the final twist, the shadow of a new, unseen threat, was just beginning to unfold. And in that quiet moment, with the wind rustling through the trees, Amina knew her story had only just reached its turning point. The days after the revelation were tense, but slowly, Amina began to feel the weight on her shoulders lighten. Not completely, but enough that she could breathe a little easier. The village continued its quiet whispers, but her parents' unwavering support gave her strength. Her father sat with her every evening under the neem tree, teaching her patience and resilience, reminding her that family was more than what the village thought or said. Her mother, though still cautious and watchful, spent time helping her prepare for the baby, knitting tiny clothes and humming old lullabies she had almost forgotten. Amina had expected the village to turn entirely against her, but something unexpected happened. A few of her neighbors, especially the older women who remembered her as a kind and respectful girl, approached quietly. They offered help, advice, and sometimes just a kind word. "It is not shame," one elder told her, placing a hand on her shoulder, "to be honest and brave. That is what matters." Those words echoed in Amina's mind, giving her courage she didn't know she had. She realized that even in a world ruled by tradition, empathy and support could find their way through. The child inside her grew quickly, a constant reminder of both the challenges and joys to come. Amina spent more time preparing for life as a mother, learning everything she could about caring for a newborn, understanding nutrition, and making plans for education once the baby arrived. She spoke quietly with her parents about her dreams, about finishing school, and about becoming a nurse as she had always wanted. They listened, sometimes hesitant, sometimes unsure, but they never dismissed her. For the first time, Amina felt like her future was hers to shape, even if the path was difficult. Musa's betrayal remained a shadow in her life, but Amina discovered a strange clarity in facing it. She understood now that trust was earned, and that promises without accountability were meaningless. She didn't dwell on anger or revenge. Instead, she focused on building a life that would protect her child and honor the love her parents had shown. That realization gave her a sense of control she had lacked since the first days of panic and fear. Yet the final twist her mother had hinted at, the mysterious outside threat, never fully revealed itself. Weeks passed and no one came looking, no one interfered. It seemed the warnings had been more about preparation than an immediate danger. Her parents explained that some people in the world made choices for their own gain, but that by staying vigilant and united they could prevent harm. It was a lesson Amina absorbed quickly. Life could be unpredictable, and preparation and courage were just as important as hope. The villagers too began to see Amina in a different light. Those who had whispered now approached her with cautious respect, acknowledging her bravery in facing a difficult situation. Even the children she had helped returned, laughing and playing around the house, as if life were slowly returning to normal. Amina found that the community's judgment, while painful at first, could evolve into understanding when met with honesty and resilience. She began volunteering again at the local school, helping younger children with reading and math, quietly reclaiming her place in the village while teaching others the value of compassion. The day Amina went into labor was quiet and peaceful. Her parents and a trusted midwife were by her side, guiding her through each contraction with patience and love. As she held her newborn baby in her arms for the first time, tears streamed down her face, not from fear, not from shame, but from relief, love, and a deep sense of accomplishment. She had survived betrayal, fear, and judgment, and now held the future in her arms. The baby's tiny fingers curled around hers, grounding her in a way nothing else had. Her parents, standing beside her, exchanged proud glances. Her father whispered, "You were brave, Amina. Always remember that." Her mother kissed her forehead and added softly, "And you are never alone. Family is always here, and your strength will guide you." In that moment, Amina understood the full meaning of those words. Bravery was not about being fearless. It was about moving forward despite fear, about protecting and nurturing life even when the world seemed harsh and uncertain. Life slowly settled into a rhythm. Amina's days were filled with feeding, learning, and caring for her child, while her parents supported her at every step. She returned to school as soon as she could, balancing her studies with motherhood, determined not to let anyone, or any circumstance, take away her dreams. The community that once watched her with suspicion began to celebrate her courage, seeing the young mother who had faced adversity and emerged stronger than ever. The story of Musa faded like a distant memory. The letters, the lies, and the betrayals became lessons, not wounds. Amina chose to forgive, not for him but for herself. She understood that holding on to anger would only hinder her growth and the life she wanted to build for her child. By letting go, she reclaimed her peace, her focus, and her future. Years later, the child grew strong and curious, surrounded by love and stories of resilience. Amina shared with her little one the importance of honesty, courage, and compassion, teaching the values that had carried her through the darkest days. The lessons she had learned, the power of family, the importance of community, and the strength that comes from within, became the foundation of their lives together. And just when Amina thought she had reached the calm after the storm, an unexpected letter arrived one afternoon, slipped quietly under the door. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter was from someone claiming to know the full story of Musa's hidden life, offering guidance and caution for the future. It reminded her that the world was unpredictable, that challenges could appear even when everything seemed resolved. But instead of fear, Amina felt readiness. She had faced secrets, betrayal, and judgment, and she knew she could face whatever came next. The final twist, instead of frightening her, became a symbol of vigilance and strength, a reminder that life's unpredictability was no match for courage and love. Amina looked down at her child, smiling softly. The journey had been painful, complicated, and full of surprises, but it had also revealed who she truly was. She had learned the value of family, the strength of resilience, and the power of making choices with love and clarity. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew they would not break her. She had survived, she had grown, and now more than ever she was ready to embrace life, its trials, its joys, and its unexpected twists, with open arms. And in the warm glow of the late afternoon sun, as the village carried on around her, Amina whispered to herself and her child, "We are stronger than fear, braver than secrets, and capable of writing our own story." The wind rustled softly through the trees as if echoing her words, carrying a quiet promise of hope, resilience, and the unshakable bond of family. Her story, once full of shame and uncertainty, had transformed into one of courage, love, and a future she could finally claim for herself. It was a story of survival, growth, and the unbreakable spirit of a young girl who refused to let betrayal and judgment define her. And though life would always hold surprises, Amina now faced them with a heart full of strength, a mind guided by wisdom, and a soul anchored in the love of her family. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the village in a golden glow, and Amina held her child close. She had survived the storms, faced the secrets, and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. Her journey was a testament to courage, resilience, and the power of love. And though twists and challenges might appear again, she was ready, and she knew that together with her family she could face anything the world sent their way. Amina's story had come full circle, not with perfection or a life free of challenges, but with the quiet triumph of someone who had faced betrayal, fear, and uncertainty, and chosen to rise. And as she looked at the horizon, she realized that the future was hers, and that the strength she had discovered within herself was a gift she would carry forever.